everyone. Welcome to Realization Hub. My name is Michelle, and today I'm delivering a message, an energy update for the full moon in Taurus happening on November 5th at 3:19 a.m. Hawaii time. And we're going to have a Taurus full moon at 13 degrees Taurus. And so, if you have any personal placements, your sun, moon, rising, Mercury, Venus, or Mars, between 8 degrees and 18 degrees of the fixed signs. That would be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Then this full moon is going to have more of a significant impact on you. Now, let's talk about this Taurus full moon. There's a lot of different layers to it or themes to it that I want to acknowledge. And the first theme that I want to bring up is that this is a Taurus full moon that's helping us rebalance something in the middle of Scorpio season. So we are still in Scorpio season, which means the sun is in Scorpio at 13 degrees in opposition to the moon at 13 degrees. So let's talk a little bit about Scorpio season. Scorpio season is a water sign, it's a fixed sign, and it's a feminine sign. So in Scorpio season, we tend to really go within, be more aware of our deep inner world, our inner complexities. We might have to confront some of our shadows, some of our primal instincts, some things that are happening on deeper emotional levels, and go through a type of evolution process. Um, and there's a deep healing alchemy in Scorpio season. You can take something that's bitter, like lemons, and turn it into lemonade. Something that once was expressed in more of a primal, lower, wounded state can go through a healing, a regeneration, a death and rebirth process that elevates it and allows you to express it in a new way, in a more elevated way, in a higher way, from a higher perspective. And so Scorpio season is very transformative, and a lot of people tend to think of it as an intense season simply because you are going deeper within yourself and you're confronting things that may not be comfortable to confront. Um, so if you tend to be someone that's a little bit more like enjoying the kind of the fun, light-hearted side of life, Scorpio season could feel like you're getting pulled into something deeper or darker that is a little bit emotionally or psychologically intense. But nonetheless, we all need Scorpio season. It is a season of our soul. It is the season of transformation. It is the season of evolution. And then we have a Taurus full moon in Scorpio season, which helps us balance this out. Now, Taurus, the full moon in Taurus, is an earth sign, which makes it practical and body oriented. And it's also a fixed energy, which makes it very stable and steady. It's also a feminine energy, which can help us be more receptive, intuitive, and slow down. The moon is actually exalted in Taurus. This is the best place for the moon to be, which means that it can fully express itself and do what it needs to do in optimal ways in Taurus. And Taurus energy in general, when you think about the archetype of this energy of Taurus, you can think of it as the bull that is grazing in the field on a sunny day. The bull is stable. It stands on all four legs. It's connected to the earth. It is enjoying the present moment. It is enjoying the food. It's eating its food all day long. It's grazing. Um, and Taurus tends to really enjoy food and comforts and the sensualities of the life of our lives. Um, Anything from food-like comforts to being lazy and sleeping in to having wonderful linens and cloths and blankets and the couches and the lounges and the music and The art around us, the sensual nature of our home, the sensual nature of our life, taking pleasure in the senses and in the beauty around us. That is very Taurus. And so it can be a creative energy, it can be a crafty energy, it can be a very body focused, grounded energy. And it can also be an energy that highlights what we value. Anything from the material possessions that we own, that we're attached to, what we value, like the physical things in our lives, as well as our own sense of self worth and our own personal value and what we value in people and in relationships and life in general. And so when we have a full moon energy, what's happening is it's like turning up the volume button on the energy collectively. It's like if we had a stereo and it was down at, 10% volume, a full moon would be at 100%, volume. It's the energies are simply louder, and stronger. They're coming to a culmination. They're coming to a fruition, and sometimes a release, and sometimes a completion. Something around the full moon. The moon itself is a luminary, which means that it brings light. It brings consciousness to something, but it's more of a reflective consciousness because it's the moon, whereas the sun brings more of a clarity or a focus, because you think of the sun and it's just always emanating its light. It brings more awareness and consciousness to things, more clarity to things. The moon is a source of reflection, it reflects the light of the sun. So it also brings a type of illumination, it brings a type of clarity to things, but more in a reflective, internal type of way, more of a receptive, kind of feminine kind of way. And so when we have a full moon, we can illuminate a clarity. We can bring something that, maybe wasn't very clear to something that becomes more clear. And it can act as just a turning point in our stories as well, where something has reached its maximum, its heightened state, and now we pivot, and we start to, turn our, our actions in a different way, around a full moon or after a full moon. Okay, and so generally speaking, you can think about a Taurus full moon as something very beautiful, where we are exploring our self worth, our value, what we value. We're able to really enjoy the pleasures of our lives and be more sensual and connected with our bodies, and something can really come to fruition in this area of your birth chart. Now, when I was looking at this energy of the full moon, I was seeing a beautiful image of lava rock and the interesting patterns in the lava rock. And I was also seeing interesting patterns of rock in general and just how water over time can create patterns in the rock. If there's a waterfall, for example, over years and years and years, it can create a valley or ridges in the walls of cliff sides, or it can slowly erode rock so that it's smooth and in the shape of like a ball or a pebble, it can really smooth things out. And so I was sensing the power of water, the power of our emotions, the power of our emotional patterns, and how that they can create pathways, and sculpt us and develop us. And it's natural, and also over time it can create, interesting patterns that may not be perfect, that may actually be out of balance, but they still provide a sense of beauty to them. When you're looking at rock, lava rock, you're seeing the different patterns of lava and how they form. They don't have balance to them. Um, Each lava rock looks different. Each lava rock has different patterns of lava on it. Yet you look at a piece of lava rock and you don't expect it to be perfect and you don't expect it to be balanced, but it is beautiful nonetheless. And you can appreciate the natural beauty and you can value the natural beauty. Um, Same thing with our emotions. I think while we're in Scorpio season, we may have trauma show up, It's Scorpio season, you'll definitely become aware of your trauma and trauma patterns. And that can act like deep emotional patterns. And, at first, that can feel like a weakness where you have tendencies to behave a certain way. You have tendencies to feel a certain way. You have tendencies to become who you are because of the way your emotions have been flowing within you or not flowing within you. And this is a full moon where I think we can appreciate and bring value to who we are naturally, despite our imperfections and despite how we've been developed. We can see ourselves as imperfect, perfectly imperfect, natural, you know, humans that have gifts from some of this patterning that we've been through. Scorpio season does bring up themes of the soul. Scorpio is ruled by the modern day planet Pluto, which is all about our soul's evolution. And so we have gifts on a soul level that we bring, and those gifts can be strong. And whether we have wisdom, or we don't have any wisdom with those gifts could potentially create issues and wounds, especially in our relationships where we feel rejected, outcasted, attacked, minimized, suppressed. Um, and when you start to shed all of those layers related to your strengths and your gifts being a weakness or bad or wrong, and you start to come into those gifts more with wisdom and practice and development, then your gifts are seen and they're valued and they make you very valuable and you can appreciate them and they bring a sense of beauty to your life within you and something that you can share in all of your relationships. So I really see that energy of appreciating not just your value and your gifts and how natural they are, even if they're linked to trauma, even if they're linked to wounding, even if they're linked to old patterns that didn't seem healthy. The opportunity to shed layers during this full moon, old karmic layers, old wounded layers, old patterns related to your gifts, um, so that you can, come into a truer version of your value and self worth and a truer appreciation for your natural beauty and gifts, as well as other people's natural beauty and gifts, even if we're not perfect, right? This full moon is not being aspected by any planet. There's no direct conversation directly to this moon from any planet, which in some ways brings a type of stillness to this full moon. There is a layer of this full moon that's kind of like a void or like still or quiet in some way, where we're coming into our senses, coming into our physical senses, coming into our emotional senses in a more grounded way. However, it is trining the South Node in Virgo. Virgo is a very purifying sign, a sign that refines everything and improves it, a sign that is healthy, and a sign that overall is healing and brings wellness and nutrition and good, diet is very common with Virgo. I think around this full moon, it could also be a type of a check in around our overall health and well being. It could be like, oh, this past month I ate too much candy or too many sweets or had too much alcohol. Like, where did I overindulge in something with food? Or maybe, this past month I have been um, too lazy. Sometimes Taurus energy can be too lazy, not doing enough, not being productive, sitting around on the couch too much, overindulging in time and procrastination. And where have you gone out of balance with your ability to kind of show up, do what you need to do, and take care of your body, especially? And where can you draw on your wisdom and practices that you've probably already developed to regain balance in your body and in your health? And, the practical ways you can show up in the world. And so that might mean you need to, eat healthier. You might start to illuminate, like, oh, I think I'm gaining weight, or oh, I think I'm developing an imbalance in my gut, or oh, I think my nervous system is, needs to be regulated, or yeah, something about your body could become revealed around this time. Not for everyone, but I'm just giving examples. And you could say, like, oh, well, I know what to do. I'm just going to start eating more greens, or I'm going to do a cleanse, or I'm going to, um, start doing more yoga, or go for walks, or, put my feet in the grass and focus on my grounding. This could be a good time to check in with your grounding and to make sure, like, am I grounded? Have I just been, you know, disconnected from my body, just kind of drifting around, having a hard time showing up in the physical world, just kind of going deep inside myself or getting lost in some way? It's another good time to check in with your wealth and your money and your material possessions. Um, Taurus does bring up topics around our material possessions and what we're attached to, and money and wealth, building strong foundations of wealth. And so, being in Scorpio season, you could be asking yourself questions like, yeah, have I been too obsessed about money? Have I been making money a limit in some way where, I won't purchase something simply because I think it costs too much money, or I'm not going to invest in myself, because I don't like spending money, or um, I've been spending too much money, or I've been obsessing with how to make more money and I'm not enjoying life as much. This is a good time to check in with your relationship to money, your relationship to wealth, and your relationship to material things that you value, as well as like how you and what you value and what you want to invest your money in. And have you been devaluing yourself? Have you been devaluing your needs, your body needs, your spiritual needs, your emotional needs, your physical needs? And is it because you've got scarcity mindset? Is it because you're having struggles with abundance? Is it because you don't think that investing in yourself is a good way to spend money? Because this full moon, I'm going to tell you what, it's about reevaluating and evolving how we value ourselves. And one way to value yourself is to invest in yourself. You know, a great example is over the last month, I just went on shopping sprees. I just went on shopping sprees and I bought new clothes, the last 2 months. I was like, you know what? I haven't done this in a long time. I've been living in Hawaii. You can just wear sandals and shorts and tank tops, and that's all you need to wear in Hawaii. You don't need much, because it's tropical. So it's like really easy to get disconnected from actually having a wardrobe. And it wasn't until I started traveling back to the mainland where I realized, like, I have not gone shopping. Like, I'm not trendy anymore. Like, I don't have anything to wear on the mainland. Like, the only thing I'm wearing is like aloha attire, And so at first I started going shopping and it was a little bit like, oh yeah, this is just an investment. I had to like kind of justify why I was spending so much money on clothes. And then by the next month, it was like a totally different energy. It was like, of course I'm going to buy this for myself. Of course I'm going to buy this for myself. Like I started recognizing like how I showed up differently because I felt so good just wearing new clothes that I liked, that were fresh, that just looked so much better than what I previously had, and um, sometimes you show up differently when you invest in yourself, whether that's with clothes, your appearance, or with things that are important to you, like investing in your business or your creative projects or things that you need in your life, like a new car, a new house, a new piece of furniture, like whatever you need, right? And so this is a good time to evaluate what you value and how you physically, practically show up and invest in what you value. With that said, we can kind of move into an energy around relationships because although there is no planet that is directly aspecting the moon, it's a full moon in Taurus. And Venus is the planet that rules Taurus. And so it is important to see what's happening with Venus in the cosmos, in the sky. And this is where we start to see more complexity starting to show up. We start to see intensity with Venus. We start to see evolution and transformation with Venus. We start to see expansion and wisdom and knowledge with Venus. And we start to see something that needs to go through a healing process with Venus and what's happening with Venus. So, if you're here with me on YouTube, you can see my screen here. Otherwise, what I'm pointing at right now is Venus. Venus is actually in Libra right now at 28 degrees during this full moon. And Venus is also at home in Libra. Venus rules Taurus and Libra. And so to have Venus in its home sign, in one of its home signs, is actually really nice. It also strengthens the energy of this moon in a more positive way where we are resourced to move through the energy, in a way where we have what we need in order to move through this energy. Okay. So we've got that going for us, but having Venus, first of all, Venus in Libra is all about our relationships and our finances and what we value and beauty and harmony and fairness and balance and justice and being aware of the other person and being objective enough to be diplomatic, being willing to see someone else's perspective and weigh it out with more than just your perspective, being open and diplomatic and objective so that you can be aware of all the facts, all the figures, all the perspectives before you decide what is just, what is unjust, what is fair, what is not fair, what is true, what is not true, and what kind of decisions you need to make. So, Venus is definitely highlighted during this full moon. And it's going, I'm not sure where to start with Venus because, first of all, we have it squaring Jupiter in Cancer over here. Jupiter in Cancer is exalted. Jupiter is a planet of our abundance and blessings and good fortune and expansion and wisdom and knowledge. It's a planet that helps us make things bigger and expands us. And so oftentimes it can bring up themes of travel and teaching alongside it. It's exalted in Cancer, which means that it's able to deliver, its energy in the highest best way in the sign of Cancer, which the sign of Cancer is a water sign. It's intuitive, it's sensitive, it's emotional, it's healing, and it connects to other people through the heart, and it cares a lot about emotional security. And to have that squaring Venus means, that there might be something out of balance. Something has been expressed a little too much, Um, it's not bad, it's not negative, but there is a challenge of needing to rebalance something that has maybe gone out of balance. So just like what I was speaking about before, have you been too lazy? Have you spent too much money? Have you overindulged? Have you been too prudent? Have you shown up in your relationships in a way that's too possessive or too jealous or too controlling? You want to think about what has been happening in my finances and in my relationships that is too much. Okay, too much of a indulgence or too much scarcity, right? And that is what's going through an evolution. And you can even think of this as our values in our relationships and in our money and how we spend our money. Where are we valuing? Where do we need to update our values? Where are we holding ourselves back from expansion simply because of our outdated values and an outdated sense of self-worth in our relationships, and in the way we grow and expand in our lives? Um, we also have Venus squaring Pluto here. Pluto's in Aquarius, another fixed air sign energy. And Pluto, the planet of death and rebirth and transformation and our soul's evolution, is squaring Venus, which means, hello, we're going to be looking at our shadows around our self-worth, around love, our ability to give and receive love, our value, our personal worth, our money and our finances. And we are going to be looking at some of that old decay that's got to go, that we need to release. It's like a death and rebirth process. There is stuff we need to unattach from. Maybe it's old values, old old self-worth wounds, old relationships to money and finances and other people. We need to purge it. We need to release it. We need to allow it to evolve to a higher, more updated state. And so, one of the images that I was seeing is, you know, having a sense of appreciation for our connections and our relationships and the value of that each person brings, what you value in your relationships. Maybe you used to value people that just gave you total freedom. Maybe you used to value people that were more consistent and showed up all the time. Maybe you used to value people that were really flexible and, um, just easygoing. Maybe you used to value people that were more spiritual or people that were more practical, or, you may have had values, what you valued in relationships, that something about it has been outdated. And maybe now you value people that embrace abundance. Maybe now you value people that invest in themselves. Maybe now you value people that see the beauty in your gifts, in your soul gifts. Maybe now you value people that are deeper, people that you not only have soul connections with, but they also show up practically in their lives. They don't just dream up dreams, they also show up to, make those dreams happen. They don't just, um, you know, live, the life that they live. Maybe they chase their ambitions or they build the legacy, or, it really depends on your values. But I'm just kind of giving you an example of, where our values in our relationships and the way we spend our money and manage our money might be going through an expansion and evolution at this time. And we get a little bit more information about this because during this full moon, Venus is in opposition to Chiron. Chiron is in Aries, the sign of self. I am. And Chiron is the wounded healer, bringing up themes of awkwardness, past trauma, past patterns, and the alchemy that we need to heal those patterns. And having Chiron and Aries is, things that have affected our confidence, things that have limited our ability to assert ourselves as individuals within a relationship, get our needs met within a relationship. And so once again, this full moon, we've been having a lot of yachts, recently, which can indicate where we're going through lots of cycles collectively, where we are having to release, suppressed energy and go through an evolution and transformation and rebalance something, right? And so that's exactly what's happening in this full moon, except it's happening with our values, it's happening with our sense of self worth, it's happening with our gifts, And when I started to look at, what is the collective theme around, some of these wounds that we're evolving from right now, and what came to me was that, we are in Scorpio season. And this is about our soul gifts. And, sometimes we have lifetimes, karmic lifetimes with our soul gifts. We come in with these strong, beautiful gifts. Maybe you were highly psychic, or maybe you were an incredible healer, or maybe you had a beautiful voice, or maybe, you were a powerful leader. And, you had these soul gifts, but you used them without wisdom, or maybe you got into some wounding around it somehow, and it became a problem. It became a reason to be rejected. It became an issue of suppression, and it made these gifts that you have, these strengths that you have, feel like weaknesses and feel like something that makes you too different in relationships where other people have maybe rejected you or judged you, or created an imbalance in your relationships, right? So this full moon is bringing up something like the witch wound, or something like a soul wound, something that, has karma around it that needs to be shed, that needs to be released, so that you have a refreshed embodiment of who you are now, what your strengths are now, what your value is now, an expansion of self worth and love and value, not just in your heart for yourself, but also for other people, even if they're not perfect. Just seeing the natural beauty and strengths that we can appreciate in everyone, that brings us all together and makes us all valuable, right? And this is kind of the tone of the full moon. It has a yod. The yod is pointing at Venus. The yod is formed through the inconjunctions with Uranus in Gemini at 0 degrees retrograde, and Neptune retrograde at 29 degrees in Pisces. So there can be a type of awakening, destabilization, breaking free, liberation around our voice, our communication, as well as our value, how we express our value, how we express our sense of self worth, how we express our soul gifts, as well as the dissolving of karmic patterns. Having Neptune here at 29 degrees in Pisces, this is a completion of a very old collective spiritual cycle. Okay. Neptune has been in Pisces for 12 years, but it takes Neptune, I think it took Neptune 80 something years to go from transiting Aries through the entire zodiac to get to Pisces. And Pisces is the last sign of a zodiac. So for Neptune to be leaving Pisces in 2026 means that we're finishing a very old collective, spiritual cycle. And to have Neptune starting a cycle in Aries next year is like a fresh new spiritual collective cycle. And so we have Neptune hanging out at this 29th degree in Pisces, which is a degree of karmic completion. And Neptune is a planet that is all about our etheric realms, our spirituality, spiritual awakening, our compassion, our healing, forgiveness, but also our creativity and, dissolving things, dissolving boundaries, dissolving, yeah, dissolving. And so, yeah, there is like a karmic dissolving that's occurring right now, a karmic completion for the sake of completion. Like we are done with those spiritual experiences. You can think about Neptune as showing us our spiritual reality on the astral realms, how things are structured on the astral realms. And when you have spiritual karma, you have soul karma, you have karma from other lifetimes, that creates energy dynamics that affect you for lifetimes. And it can affect the way you express your gifts. It can affect the way you manifest and create. It can affect, what you can have and receive. And if you're holding on to karmic patterns related to your soul gifts or related to your sense of worth and what you can receive or related to your sense of value and how you relate to other people and your overall abundance and your ability to create financial security and foundations of wealth, this is a karmic dissolving, that is helping us take these wounds, dissolve them, change them, have a breakthrough, and go through an expansion and evolution of some kind relating to our relationships, our worth, our value, and our money. Um, and so I do think this is a powerful full moon in some ways because it does have a layer to it that is calm and slow and steady and embodied, right? And then it has this other layer of like karmic alchemy, intensity, you know, um, release, wounding, coming up to the surface to release and go through a transformation. Right. And so it does have that Scorpio season kind of intensity to it as well that we might be feeling around our hearts, our chest. You could be feeling releases around your chest and your heart. And of course, you could be feeling energetic changes happening more on astral levels that, ripple into our physical levels. So we have an opportunity in this full moon to, with it in a sextile to the North Node, we have an opportunity to embrace more compassion and forgiveness in our relationships, as well as a spiritual tone in our relationships and, um, trust and surrender to our higher power, um, and how we come into more value and worth and overall balance in our relationships. Although there's a very calm energy to Taurus and it's exalted and Venus is at home, we do have that, energetic stirring going on related to alchemizing our wounds on a deeper level. But then we also have Mars here. Mars is going to be moving right into Sagittarius at this time at 0 degrees, and it's going to be in a very tight opposition, like an exact opposition with Uranus. And it's going to be pretty close in conjunction with Mercury in Sagittarius. Now, first of all, having Mars and Mercury this close together brings about more mental activity. We could be thinking a lot, we could be more energized, we could also be more frustrated, especially with Mars and Mercury going into Sagittarius. It is a fire sign. Fire signs can be more quick to anger, but they can also be quick to, recovering from their anger. Um, so yeah, those frustrations can occur, at the very worst, this could be a time where we're prone to fighting or, saying things where we're too blunt or, um, we don't think things through before we say them, or the way we communicate something could be a little bit too obtuse or broad-minded and not exactly, you know, um, referring to the details that are maybe important. Um, but it can really energize us, mentally and verbally, and could be thinking about an overall picture. We could be more broad-minded, we could be more philosophical, we could be thinking about something in a more, trying to find meaning to something or purpose to something in our lives, and really trying to process that and translate that. And Sagittarius is the archer, and it's always got this higher goal in mind, and aiming towards that goal, and finding a sense of higher purpose in our lives and the meaning of our lives. And it can be very philosophical, explorative, and adventurous. Um, and so, yeah, we could be more adventurous, we could be more communicative, we could be thinking a lot, processing a lot. But this opposition with Uranus, on a personal level, could be like a breakthrough in communication and action. If you've been stuck in old stagnant patterns of action and thinking, this could be like an awakening where you break through communication patterns, communication styles. You could break through and change, you know, how you're channeling your energy, how you're breaking through obstacles, how you're um, needing to shift something, with the way you are acting, as far as like channeling your energy towards a goal of some kind. You could shift it. It could suddenly shift. You could change. You could be multitasking. You could be changing your energy and being more adaptable. You could face some unpredictable changes, where you suddenly have to change how you're directing your energy in some way, and you might be doing that because something changes mentally, something changes in your mind, but this could be on a positive note. This could be like a change in communication styles, a change in thinking. Uranus is the higher mind. So you could have like a shift in consciousness. You could be coming into some new perspectives. You could be coming into some exciting information that changes how you direct your energy, that has you, unexpectedly channel your energy differently. That kind of renews the way you channel your energy in general and manifest things with your energy. That's kind of like the tension there that could be more positive. But collectively, this is where I think something could be a little bit shocking or violent or loud, because Uranus and Mars, sometimes they don't play nice, especially when they're in hard aspects to each other, when they have conjunctions and squares and oppositions. Oftentimes it can bring up violence and unexpected combustive kind of events like explosions and, things that we don't see coming, that are in the news, that are shocking us. And so, yeah, to have Mercury and Mars so close together in opposition to Uranus, definitely collective. There could be something in the headline news at this time that is violent or shocking or combustive of some kind. And so I do want to put out like a disclaimer for those of you that have personal placements in the early degrees of mutable signs. So if you have personal placements in the early degrees of Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces, you want to be very physically present with your body and with your safety, and just, the best bet is to slow down and, maybe use this full moon to kind of like you know, uh, like slow down and take things slow and be very careful, to avoid accidents, to avoid potential violence, to avoid potential things that are dangerous, and to just, especially the days leading up to this full moon, the days after this full moon, when the energy is really heightened, to just be very careful. Okay. So that's just like a physical safety disclaimer for those of you that have early degree placements in the mutable signs. Otherwise, I think it could be like a shift in consciousness, that occurs, with the energy becoming so heightened, it just feels like, wow, I'm thinking of something so differently, and now I'm going to change what I'm doing, and at first I was doing this, and now I'm going to do it this way. And you might, come into a download or like, a perspective that's more broad, that translates differently within you. And so that's kind of something you can look forward to. All right. I'm going to do a lightning round here of this full moon and where it's going to be showing up for you in your chart. So you can listen for your rising sign. That's going to give you the most accurate description of the area of your life in which you're going to be experiencing this full moon. But you can also listen to your sun sign and your moon sign to give you more of a holistic perspective on other areas of your life that might be impacted more by this full moon. So, if we're looking at those of you with Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this full moon is happening in your second house of earned income, material possessions, self worth, your values. If you are Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this is happening in your first house, and it has everything to do with you and your physical appearance. If you are a Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this full moon is happening in your 12th house. This has to do with solitude, completions, endings, um, rest. So, for those of you with Gemini rising, especially, this might be like a timeout for you. You might need to rest more around this full moon. Okay, for those of you with Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this full moon is happening in your 11th house of friends and community and hopes and dreams and altruistic endeavors. For those of you with Leo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this is a full moon happening in your career, public reputation. For those of you with Sun, Moon, or Rising in Virgo, this full moon is happening in your ninth house of long distance travel, higher education, your beliefs, your overall philosophy, worldview. For those of you with Libra, Sun, Moon, or Rising, this full moon is happening in your eighth house of transformation, death and rebirth, the occult, your shared resources, your intimacy, debt, taxes, inheritance, real estate. For those of you with your sun, moon, or rising in Scorpio, this full moon is happening in your seventh house of close relationships, partnerships, and marriage, and open enemies and contracts. For those of you with Sagittarius, sun, moon, or rising, this full moon is happening in your sixth house of daily routines, health, employment, and service to others and your pets. With those of you with sun, moon, or rising in Capricorn, this full moon is happening in your fifth house of passion and joy and entertainment and creativity and self expression and children. For those of you with sun, moon, or rising in Aquarius, this full moon is happening in your fourth house of home and family, parents, ancestry, your roots and tradition, and even your emotional security. For those of you with sun, moon, or rising in Pisces, this full moon is happening in your third house of communication, local transit, neighbors, extended family, and siblings, as well as thinking and processing and writing. All right, everyone. It was so good to review this energy update with you. Overall, I would recommend that you find a wonderful practice to honor your body during this full moon, something that helps you restore balance within yourself and your health and your overall well being. And also consider your own personal value, your own personal sense of self-worth and how you relate to others, what you used to value, and what needs to be updated around that. How you can go through a healing process to help you show up with more self worth, more value, and also valuing other people and appreciating other people and coming together with other people that you love, and even increasing your material wealth and your material possessions if needed, updating that if needed. All right, everyone, I wish you the best for this full moon. I'm going to be uploading another message here around Mercury retrograde soon. For those of you that are listening to me on YouTube, I'm pretty sure my channel has been shadow banned or restricted here. I haven't gotten an official message, but this channel has been greatly limited for the past year now. And so I am posting on Spotify. I'm posting more um, audio messages on Spotify. So feel free to follow me on Instagram or TikTok, and follow Realization Hub on Spotify, and you'll receive more messages there as well. I'm going to continue to upload on YouTube. However, at some point, I'm going to need to make some changes because something is wonky with my channel here, and I appreciate those of you that follow me and um, listen to these messages on a regular basis. You are so awesome. And if you ever need any support, you know where to find me. If you need an astrology reading, an energy healing, an intuitive reading, or if you want to learn how to manage your energy, learn how to heal yourself and develop your psychic abilities and apply it in very practical, empowering ways. You need to feel more calm, balanced, and whole. You want to feel more clear and energized. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.